Doctor, what's the one thing that you need to optimize your financial health in 2026? Let's face it, this time of year, many smart, well-intentioned physicians and dentists make resolutions around finances. But the honest truth is that most will fail. Their financial goals are never realized. And why? It's not because of a knowledge gap or a lack of discipline or a moral failure. It's something far more predictable, and it's fixable. The doctors who build a life of true wealth rely on a structured framework, just like you rely on a framework to diagnose and treat your patients. So if you want this to be the year when you finally turn your finances around, the year where you're in charge of your money rather than your money being in charge of you, the one thing that changes everything is your ability to actively manage your human brain. I bet you thought I was going to say, find a budget and stick to it, or save 20% more, and don't lose money in your investments. But actively manage your brain? How does that make any sense? And let me offer you some proof about why I say that. A lot of doctors think, okay, I've got a money problem and I need more money to turn things around. Well, let's look at people who get more money. How about lottery winners? In most cases, they are worse off just a few years later than they were before they won the money. The vast majority of professional athletes are broke within 3 to 5 years of retirement. Now, what's the problem here? The problem is that they got this infusion of money, but without changing the way that they think and they act around money. You will generally recreate the circumstances that you experienced right before you got this infusion. Further, the evolving field of behavioral finance describes the fact that real people with human brains behave differently than ideal investors. Because we have a human brain, we make predictable mistakes that will erode wealth. So, in order to change your money thoughts and habits and create different results, it means actively managing your brain, not using your brain in the way that you've always used it for your whole life. That created where you are now. To get from here to where you want to be, your brain needs to function differently. You need to actively manage your brain. If we've not met, I'm Dr. Vicki Rackner. I'm trained as a surgeon and have experience in private practice, mostly operating on breast cancer patients. But for the past 15 years, I've been helping doctors get more of what they want and less of what they don't want through my company, Thriving Doctors. When I hear my doctor clients talk about their troubling relationship with money, I think about my own relationship with sugar. Now, I want to enjoy optimal health. I know from years of experience that I do better when I'm off of sugar. I make a solemn vow to myself that that's it. I will never eat refined sugar again. And then I find myself at a birthday party where they're serving my favorite cake. Or after a long day, I'm tired and hungry, I wind up at the grocery store and my favorite food is on sale. Suddenly, I'm off the wagon. Then I beat myself up. And that one day off the wagon oftentimes extends to 2 or 3 days. I thought, I've just got to get the right motivation, the right incentive, and then things will change. And I see many doctors think those same things about money. I just need to get a budget and stick to it. I need to just set aside time to manage my student loans or think about how I'm going to structure my investments. And then the same thing happens to them. Life gets busy, they get distracted. And at the end of the year, they've not made the progress that they were hoping to. Well, about 7 years ago, something happened that radically shifted the way I understand why I fell off the sugar wagon and why so many doctors have a hard time with their money. So let me tell you this story. My son was just starting college, and I saw some unusual behaviors, and I thought, well, transition time. But then one day we were talking on the phone, and he casually mentioned that he avoids a certain bridge on campus because every time he goes over the bridge, he thinks about jumping. Now, he said it in just about that tone, like I was reporting the weather. I convinced myself that he was not actively suicidal and got him in for a complete neuropsych evaluation. And I was so surprised with the findings of the PET scan that you could have knocked me over with a feather. He had OCD. Now, I'd learned about OCD in medical school. You know, these are people who compulsively wash their hands for hours or line things up neat and tidy. But my son was none of that. Instead, he had thoughts about harming himself or others. I asked him one day, what's it like to live with OCD? And he said, it's sort of like this OCD monster, this bully, got into my head, and it tells me really bad things about the risks to myself, the risks to the world. I can't just ignore these thoughts. It's persistent. And when I really finally focus in on the thoughts, I have extremely high levels of anxiety. It feels like I'm dying of a heart attack. And I know that there are certain things that I can do to bring down my anxiety, at least temporarily. Sometimes he says some ritualized things to himself when he crosses the bridge. But then after this momentary reprieve, the cycle just starts all over. And next time it's bigger and it's stronger. And by the time my son was diagnosed, he was spending hours each day in these cycles of obsessions, these unwanted thoughts, and the compulsions, the unwanted behaviors. He had started limiting his life so he wouldn't be exposed to the triggers that started the obsessions. My son's unmanaged brain was eroding his life. It was standing in the way of the things that he wanted. In order to be freed from OCD, he learned how to actively manage his brain. He learned 3 skills that I'm going to share with you. And these 3 skills can help you finally break through and achieve your financial goals. And finally, when they learned how to actively manage their brain, when they understood, oh, that's why it's so hard for me to resist my urge to spend, that's when everything changed for them. Step number 1, witness and choose your thoughts. Now, your brain will tell you that any thought that crosses your consciousness is fact. It is true. But in fact, that is not true. That's a lie. My son's OCD monster offered him these obsessive thoughts. And my son understood that he could just ignore those thoughts, not give OCD the power, just to say no to OCD and choose another thought. In fact, he learned a little buzz phrase. It's not me, it's the OCD. In a very similar way, you have thoughts about money. Some of these thoughts are below the level of conscious thought, but they're powerful. They're the background noise that are driving, ultimately, your money-related behaviors. So your ability to witness your thoughts and then choose what thought you are going to be guided by is powerful. Second, he learned to feel his feelings. These compulsions were an effort to avoid the anxiety. So the real evidence-based treatment for OCD is being willing to sit with the anxiety and understand that feelings will pass just like clouds in the sky. You just have to be patient. The third thing he learned to do was resist urges. By the time he was treated, his cycles of obsessions and compulsions had become habit. So in order to change the habit, He needed to be able to experience these cravings, these urges, and just say no to them. I believe that these 3 skills that my son learned are the 3 skills that will help you achieve any goals you want. And I can give you story after story about doctors who had tried to manage their money with discipline or willpower. Now, you've been managing money since you were a child. You've witnessed your parents manage money. So right now, today, you have a lifetime of experience with your thoughts about money, which often are operating below the level of conscious thought. You have feelings about money, and you have money habits. And these thoughts and feelings and actions have shaped where you are right now financially. So if we infuse more money into your system without changing the way that you manage your brain, you're simply going to recreate your current situation, only on a bigger scale. Choosing your thoughts, being able to lean into your feelings, and forming new habits really are the core of true financial transformation. Now, that is just one element of the True Wealth Way, which is a structure about how you earn, spend, invest, and protect your money. If you'd like more information about the True Wealth Way, please click here to watch the next video.